Welcome to Lukebook Money, built for Singapore. Today, an ordinary school teacher, quietly sitting on $2 million. Here's the real story. Quick favor before we start. If you're new to Tiger Brokers, just tap the link in my description below, or key in the code on your screen when you sign up. We both earn $90, and it quietly keeps these daily videos free. Thank you. Now, let's get into it. There is a man marking exam papers at a kopitiam table right now, red pen in one hand, kopi in the other. And he is quietly worth around $2 million. He is not a businessman, not a landlord, and he never picked a hot stock in his life. He is a school teacher. And his story might be the most important one we ever tell. Let us call him Mr. Lim. For more than 30 years, he taught secondary school under the Ministry of Education. Maths, mostly. A whole generation passed through his classroom. You have met 100 Mr. Lims. Soft voice, sensible shoes, a faded polo shirt. The kind of man you would walk straight past in a crowd. He drives a 12-year-old car, a small Japanese sedan he services on time and washes himself on a Sunday. It still runs perfectly, so why would he change it? On weekends you will find him at the same kopitiam, same corner table, marking papers. $2 for a kopi, 2 hours, and never the need to spend more. He lives in a 5-room HDB flat he has owned, fully paid off, for years. No mortgage. No rent. The roof over his head costs him almost nothing. When his colleagues talk about crypto, or the latest hot property launch, Mr. Lim just smiles and stays quiet. He never does anything exciting with his money. And that is exactly the point. While everyone around him was being clever, busy, and frantic, Mr. Lim was being something more powerful. He was being boring, decade after decade. Before we reveal what he is worth, let us be clear-eyed about what he earned. Because the income behind this fortune is the most ordinary thing about the entire story. His salary, across his whole career, was never spectacular. It started at around $3,500 a month, and by the end, after 30 years, had grown to roughly $7,000. That is a solid, middle-class Singapore income. Not a rich man's salary, not a banker's bonus. It is the pay of an ordinary professional doing an ordinary, important job. For context, the median full-time wage in Singapore sits around $5,500 a month. So for much of his career, Mr. Lim earned right about the typical Singaporean. And yet, on that ordinary salary, with no inheritance, no side hustle, and no get-rich-quick scheme, this man has quietly assembled a net worth of around $2 million. How? That is the question that should be burning in your mind. How does a school teacher end up sitting on $2 million? The answer will surprise you with how plain it is. There is no secret. No trick. No clever move you missed. What Mr. Lim did, you could very likely do too. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how. One honest promise before we go further. Everything here is educational, the mechanics of how this wealth gets built. It is not personal financial advice, and Mr. Lim is one careful man, not a guarantee. So settle in. Pour yourself a kopi. And let me introduce you properly to the quiet millionaire teacher, and the almost embarrassingly simple path that got him there. Let me paint his ordinary life in full, because the ordinariness is the point. He wakes at 6, takes the same train, teaches the same subject he has loved for decades. His lunch is economy rice from the hawker stall. His shirts are the same few he has worn for years. His phone is 2 generations old, and it works perfectly fine. His wife worked too, in an equally modest job. 2 ordinary salaries, 1 ordinary household. No trust fund, no rich relative, no windfall. They started with nothing but 2 paychecks and a plan. They raised 2 children, and paid for their schooling, tuition, and university. None of that was free. And still, the quiet machine in the background kept running, year after year. Look at his bank statements in his 30s and you would have seen nothing remarkable. A modest balance, a small investment account. Nothing that screamed future millionaire. That is exactly how it should look. First, let us actually open up that $2 million and see what is inside it. Because the shape of his wealth tells you almost everything about how he built it. When you hear $2 million, your mind jumps to something dramatic. Hot tech stocks. Rental apartments. A business he sold. None of that is here. Mr. Lim's $2 million is made of just 3 plain pieces. A paid-off home. His CPF. And 2 simple index funds. That is the whole thing. Let us walk through each one. 3 pieces. Not 30. He could explain his entire net worth on the back of a kopitiam napkin. Simplicity was the point. The biggest piece is the roof over his head. His 5-room HDB flat, bought decades ago and fully paid off, is today worth somewhere around $900,000 on the resale market. A fair caveat right away. A home you live in is not the same as cash you cannot spend your living room. We will come back to that. But it is real, debt-free wealth. The second piece is his CPF. Across more than 30 years of full contributions, every single month, his CPF balances have quietly swelled to roughly $500,000. That $500,000 sat in accounts paying a guaranteed 2.5% to 4% every year, for decades the higher rates on his special and retirement money. The third piece is the one most people find surprising. About $600,000 sits in just 2 simple, low-cost index funds. One tracking Singapore, one tracking the world. The first is the Straits Times Index ETF, the STI ETF. It holds the 30 biggest companies listed in Singapore, the banks, the telcos, the property giants in one cheap basket. The second is a global index fund, an ETF holding thousands of companies from all around the world. America, Europe, Japan, everywhere. He owns a tiny slice of the entire planet's business. Why 2 funds and not one? Diversification. The Singapore fund ties him to dividends he understands. The global fund means that if Singapore has a quiet decade, the world can still carry him. Add it together. Around 900,000 in the flat, 500,000 in CPF, 600,000 in the 2 ETFs. That is your $2 million, in plain sight. Here is the allocation as a picture. Notice how unglamorous it is, and that there is nothing here you have not heard of. No private deals, no insider anything. Just home, CPF, and 2 funds. Before we move on, let us be honest about something that trips people up when they hear a number like 2 million. Not all of it is the same kind of money. Now, of that 2 million, how much could he actually spend? The flat he lives in is locked up. So the truly liquid part is the CPF and the ETFs a bit over $1 million. And even within that, the CPF money has withdrawal rules, while the ETFs he could sell next week. None of this shrinks the achievement. It just keeps us honest. Even so, sit with that. A school teacher, on a salary that peaked at $7,000 a month, with over $1 million in liquid wealth on top of a paid-off home worth nearly $1 million more. And he did it without a dramatic income, without a wild risk, and without ever once trying to get rich quickly. So now we get to the real question. How? And notice the shape of his wealth. It is balanced across 3 baskets: property, government-guaranteed CPF, and the global stock market. If one stumbles, the other 2 hold him up. The answer is not one big thing. It is 5 small, boring things, repeated for 3 decades. Let us go through every single one of them, because this is the actual playbook. This is the engine room of the whole story. Forget the man for a moment, and look at the machine he built. 5 gears, and each one almost insultingly simple. Let us start with the gear that quietly underpins everything else, the one that every working Singaporean already has, whether they value it or not. His CPF. Gear 1. CPF. Every single month, For more than 30 years, Mr. Lim contributed the full amount, and so did his employer, the government, on top. Most Singaporeans see that CPF deduction and quietly resent it. Money locked away that they cannot touch. Mr. Lim saw it completely differently. He saw a gift. Here is why. His CPF ordinary account earned 2.5% a year, guaranteed. His special account earned around 4%, guaranteed. By the government. Rain or shine. Appreciate how rare a guaranteed 4% is. A 6-month treasury bill in 2026 pays only about 1.5%. His special account quietly paid him more than double, risk-free. He treated his CPF special account like the safest, most boring bond in the world, and he never, ever touched it. He let it sit and compound, untouched, for 30 straight years. Compounding at 4% looks like little in year 1. But on a growing balance, over 30 years, it roughly doubles your money twice over. $1 he put in early became around 3 by the end. And a second hidden gift. Because the money is locked away, you cannot panic sell it or be talked into a hot tip. The very thing people hate about CPF is part of why it makes them rich. And he did not have to do anything. The contribution was automatic. The rate was guaranteed. He just had to not interfere. For most people, not interfering is the hardest part of all. And CPF is not only savings. A slice goes to MediSave, and CPF Life will turn his retirement balance into a payout for life, quietly arranging to pay him a salary, forever. That guaranteed 4% was his bedrock. But CPF alone does not get you to 2 million. The second gear took him the rest of the way, and it is the one you can copy most directly. Gear 2. Automatic monthly investing. This is the quiet heart of the whole machine, so let us slow down and look at it properly. On the day his salary landed each month, before he could spend a cent, a fixed sum was automatically moved out and invested. Same amount, same day, every month. He started small. In his early years, maybe $500 a month. As his salary grew, the amount grew with it. But it never, ever stopped. Not once in 30 years. $500 a month does not sound like a path to 2 million, does it? And that disbelief is precisely why so few people ever start. They underestimate the quiet power of compounding. This habit has a name. Dollar cost averaging. You invest a fixed amount on a fixed schedule, whatever the market is doing. And it quietly solves the hardest problem in investing. The hardest problem is this. Nobody, not the experts, not the gurus, not you, can reliably tell you whether the market goes up or down next month. Trying to time it is a losing game. Picture the two people who tried to time it. One waited for a dip that never came, the other jumped in at the top and panic sold the first drop. Both lost. Mr. Lim was neither. Dollar cost averaging makes timing irrelevant. When prices are high, his fixed 500 buys fewer units. When prices crash, that same 500 buys far more units, on sale. Automatically. Read that again, because it is the whole secret. For a man who keeps buying automatically, a crash is not a disaster, it is a sale. He buys the most shares exactly when everyone else panics. And because it was automatic, he never had to feel brave. The decision to invest was made once, years ago, and a machine carried it out forever. Automation protects you on the good days too. When the market soars and you feel clever, or crashes and you want to stop, the machine just keeps to the plan. So the money was being saved automatically. The question is, into what? Get this wrong, with fees and stock picking, and the machine sputters. Mr. Lim made it as simple as humanly possible. Gear 3. What he bought with all that money. He made the simplest possible choice. He did not pick stocks, he bought the whole market, in 2 cheap funds. Half went into the STI ETF, the 30 biggest companies in Singapore. The other half into a global ETF, thousands of the world's companies. 2 funds. The whole planet's business. Why an index fund instead of picking winners? Because the well-documented truth is that the large majority of professional fund managers, paid millions to beat the market, fail to do it over the long run. If highly paid professionals mostly cannot beat the index, what chance does a teacher marking papers at night have? Mr. Lim knew the answer. Almost none. So he simply bought the index. An index fund costs almost nothing to own, a tiny fraction of a percent a year. An active fund, or many insurance-linked products, can quietly skim 1, 2, even 3% a year of your money. That difference in fees is a silent killer. 1 or 2% a year, compounded over 30 years, can quietly eat a third or more of your final wealth. Mr. Lim kept his costs near zero. Make the fee point concrete. 2 teachers, same savings and returns over 30 years. One pays 0.3% a year, the other 1.5%. The cheap one ends up with tens of thousands more. Crucially, the STI ETF pays dividends. The companies inside it share their profits. And Mr. Lim reinvested every single dividend, automatically, buying more units. Growth on top of growth. Those reinvested dividends matter more than they sound. Over the long run, a large share of the market's total return came from dividends plowed back in, not prices rising. Skip that, and you leave a fortune behind. Over the very long run, with dividends reinvested, the Singapore market has delivered something around 5 to 7% a year. Not exciting in any single year. Quietly enormous across 3 decades. And here is the kicker. If fees over 30 years can cost a third of your wealth, then choosing a cheap index fund over an expensive one might be the most profitable decision in this video. Now the gear almost nobody can run. Everything so far has been mechanical. Set it up, walk away. This one is purely about your nerve. And it is where most plans die. Gear 4, and this separates the people who get rich slowly from the people who only talk about it. He held through everything. He never sold in a panic. Here is what nobody warns you about. Over 30 years, the market will absolutely terrify you. Not once, many times. And Mr. Lim lived through some of the worst of it. 2008, the global financial crisis. The world's banks teetered on collapse and stock markets fell by roughly half. On paper, Mr. Lim watched a big slice of his savings vanish. Picture his statement that year. Years of disciplined saving and skipped holidays, all showing a number far smaller than what he had put in. Every instinct screaming at him to sell. He did not sell. Better, he did the opposite. His automatic investment kept buying, all the way down, scooping up shares at half price while the whole world ran for the exit. And then the market recovered, as it always eventually has. The people who panicked and sold near the bottom locked in their losses. Mr. Lim, who held and kept buying, watched his cheap shares soar. Then 2020. The pandemic crash. In a matter of weeks, markets fell off a cliff faster than 2008, and the fear just as real. And once again, Mr. Lim sat completely still and kept buying. There is brutal math behind why holding wins. The market's best days cluster right after its worst. Miss just a handful of those best days over 30 years, and your final wealth is cut dramatically. By staying invested through both storms, instead of fleeing to cash, he captured the full recovery that followed each one. That, more than anything clever, is what built his wealth. Notice the cruel irony. The people most desperate to avoid losses sell at the bottom and lock them in. The ones who accept the paper losses calmly never actually suffer them. There is an old market saying that captures it. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. For 30 years, Mr. Lim was simply, stubbornly, the patient one. Here is the most painful statistic in investing. The average person earns less than the very funds they own because they buy after things rise and sell after they fall. The human ruins it. One last gear, and without it none of the others could turn. You cannot automatically invest money you do not have. The fuel came from the simplest, oldest idea in personal finance. Gear 5. The home, and the way he lived. None of the investing would matter if there were nothing left over each month to invest. And that came down to how he spent. He and his wife bought their 5-room HDB flat early, and made one decision that shaped everything. They paid it down aggressively, and got rid of the mortgage years ahead of schedule. Once that mortgage was gone, the single biggest expense in most households disappeared from his. The money that would have gone to housing, for the rest of his career, went straight into the ETFs. He never upgraded to a condo to impress anyone. No bigger house, no second property, no status address. The HDB flat was comfortable, paid for, and enough. That word, enough, was his superpower. For long stretches, he did not even own a car. He took the bus and train, like his students. The hundreds of thousands a car costs over a lifetime went, again, into investing. Think about what a car really costs here. With the certificate of entitlement, petrol, parking, insurance, and servicing, it can swallow a couple of $1,000s a month. Mr. Lim invested that instead, for years. His holidays were modest. A road trip to Malaysia. A budget flight to Bangkok or Bali with the family. Real, happy holidays, just never extravagant. He was frugal, but never a joyless miser. An important distinction. This is not a story of a man who suffered to get rich. He ate well, loved his kopi, spent on his children's education. He just did not waste money on what did not matter. That high savings rate has a name: avoiding lifestyle inflation. Every time his pay rose, most people would upgrade everything. Mr. Lim kept spending flat and sent the raises into investing. The result was a high savings rate. He and his wife invested a large share of their take-home pay not because they were rich, but because their lifestyle stayed small while their salary slowly grew. And a modest lifestyle has a wonderful side effect: you need a smaller pile to be free. Someone who spends $2,000 a month needs far less invested than someone who spends $10,000. That gap, between what he earned and what he spent, is the fuel for the whole engine. Without it, there is nothing to invest. With a steady gap for 30 years, the rest takes care of itself. So those are the 5 gears, each ordinary on its own. But machines are never about the parts, they are about what happens when they turn together. Let us watch the whole engine run. Put the 5 gears together, because together is where the magic is. None of them, alone, is impressive. Stacked, and run for 3 decades, they built $2 million. CPF gave him a guaranteed bond he never touched. Automation made him invest without thinking. The index gave him the whole market cheaply. Holding let the recoveries work. The paid-off flat freed the cash. Notice the lovely thing. 4 of the 5 gears, once set up, ask nothing of you ever again. Only one holding your nerve in a crash asks anything at all. And the gears feed each other. The paid-off home freed cash, which fed the investing, which bought more index, whose dividends bought still more, while CPF compounded underneath. One self-reinforcing system. Now let us watch the number actually grow, because the shape of it is the most important lesson of all. For the first 10 years, it is honestly discouraging. Slow. Almost pointless feeling. Here is roughly how his combined wealth climbed across his career. Look at the curve. Flat and frustrating at the start. Then it bends. Then, in the final decade, it goes nearly vertical. That shape is the most important thing in this whole video, the curve of compounding. The early years feel like nothing is happening, because your savings do all the work and the returns are tiny. But the gains from the early years start earning gains of their own. By the final decade, his money grew faster from returns alone than he could ever have saved by hand. The snowball was rolling itself. To feel how much the early years matter, $1 invested in his 20s had 30 years to compound, one in his 50s had only a few. Time is the one thing you cannot buy back. Which leads to the most important lesson in his story. The most valuable ingredient was not a clever fund or a high salary. It was time. He started early, and simply refused to stop. Name the whole machine in one breath. Earn steadily. Spend modestly. Invest the gap automatically into cheap index funds. Let CPF compound. Never sell in a panic. Wait 30 years. That is the entire formula. Now my favorite part. Because Mr. Lim's quiet 2 million does not just teach you something. It destroys something. It kills one of the most damaging myths about money in Singapore. The myth goes like this. To get wealthy in Singapore, you must do something special. Start a business. Become a landlord. Or pick the next big stock. Mr. Lim did none of these. Myth 1. You must be an entrepreneur, take the big risk, start a company, build the empire. Yes, some get rich that way. But for everyone who succeeds, many quietly fail and lose everything. Mr. Lim never started a business. He never took that risk or stress. He drew a steady salary and let a quiet, automatic system do the work a business never could have guaranteed anyway. Myth 2. You must be a property landlord. Own a second condo, collect the rent, ride the boom. In land-scarce Singapore, this feels like the only real way to get rich. Mr. Lim owns exactly one property, the flat he sleeps in. No rental units, no tenants at midnight, no second mortgage. His one flat, paid off, was all the property he ever needed. Myth 3, the most seductive. You must be a stock picker. Be clever, watch the charts, find the next winner, trade your way to wealth. This is the fantasy that ruins the most people. Mr. Lim never picked a single stock. He could not tell you which bank will outperform next year, and never cared to. He bought all 30, and the whole world, and let the average carry him. Here is the deep reason index investing works. A handful of huge winners drive most of the market's return over decades, and nobody can pick them in advance. Own the whole index, and you own those winners by default. So strip the myth away. No business. No tenants. No trading. And yet, $2 million. Every glamorous path you were told was required, he skipped entirely. What replaced the glamour was almost comically dull. Boring. Automatic. Patient. He let three forces do the heavy lifting: time, compounding, and a refusal to interfere. Here is the contrast that should stay with you. The clever investor is busy every day reading news, watching charts, buying, selling. And very often, after all that, he underperforms the boring man who did nothing. There is a deep truth here. In most of life, more effort gives more reward. Investing is one of the strange corners where, past a point, more activity destroys your returns. Every trade costs you and risks a mistake. Every attempt to time the market gives you a chance to be wrong twice, once getting out, once getting back in. Mr. Lim never gave himself those chances. Think about who profits from the myth. Brokers, fund managers, and media all need you trading and anxious. An entire industry wants you believing this is complicated. It is not. So the myth this story kills, once and for all, is that wealth requires cleverness. It does not. It requires a system, and the discipline to run it without flinching for a very long time. And that is the most liberating idea you will hear all year. You do not need to be a genius. You just need to be patient and consistent, which anyone can choose to be. One more myth worth killing. That you need a big salary to start. Mr. Lim began on $3,500 a month. It was the consistency of the slice he carved off, not the size of the paycheck. And the myth that it is too late. His wealth came mostly from the final decade, when compounding went vertical. The best day to start was 20 years ago, the second best is today. Now I have to be completely honest with you. If I only told you the inspiring half, I would be doing you a disservice. There are hard caveats, and you deserve every one of them. Caveat 1, a big one. Mr. Lim had a genuine tailwind not everyone has. A stable government job, a reliable salary that never disappeared, and CPF contributions that never missed a beat for 30 years. Think what that stability gave him. He never had a year of unemployment that forced him to sell at the bottom to pay rent. The machine never had to switch off. Many Singaporeans do not have that. Freelancers, gig workers, people retrenched in their 50s. For them, that smooth 30-year run is genuinely much harder to pull off. So if your income is less stable, the lesson is not that this is impossible. You just need a bigger cash cushion, so a bad year never forces you to sell at the worst possible time. That was the caveat about his job. The next set of caveats is about the markets themselves, and these apply to you no matter how stable your income is. Please do not skip them. Caveat 2. Markets rose over his career. Mr. Lim invested across 3 decades in which Singapore and the world economy, despite the crashes, grew enormously over the full stretch. He had history on his side. The long arc of human productivity has trended upward for a very long time, and that is why index investing has worked. But nobody can promise the next 30 years will look like the last. Caveat 3, and hear this loudly. Index funds are not safe in the short term. A global or Singapore ETF can lose 30, 40, even 50% of its value in a serious crash. If you cannot stomach watching a $200,000 portfolio briefly become $120,000 without panic selling, this strategy will not work for you. The math only works if your stomach holds. This is what the inspiring videos skip. His success was not about the funds he chose. It was his temperament doing nothing while his net worth was cut in half and everyone around him panicked. Caveat 4. It took 3 full decades. This is not a 5-year plan, and not get-rich-quick dressed as patience. It is get-rich slow, and slow means slow. 30 years of unbroken discipline. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 30. Mr. Lim's whole fortune lives in that gap. He thought in decades while others thought in months. Caveat 5, on the home. That $900,000 flat is wealth he lives inside, not money he can spend. To unlock it, he must sell and downsize, or borrow against it. And one more, on CPF. A big chunk of his liquid-looking wealth is in CPF, which has rules on when you can withdraw it. Excellent, guaranteed money but not money he can touch tomorrow. So let us be fair about the whole picture. Here is what was genuinely in his favor, and what was genuinely hard, side by side. The honest truth lives in holding both at once. And do not forget the human side. Living below your means for 30 years has a cost: 2 holidays not taken, the bigger house declined. He does not regret it, but it was a real trade. None of this means his path is a trick or a fluke. It was real, repeatable in spirit, and demanding. The principles are open to almost anyone, the discipline to run them for 3 decades is the rare part. And to be fair to the doubters, 2 million on a teacher's salary puts Mr. Lim in the upper tail, not the middle. The point is never the precise number, but the direction the method reliably moves you. And to say it plainly one more time. This is an educational story about how compounding, automation, and patience work. It is not personal financial advice. Speak to a licensed professional before acting. But here is the hopeful flip side. Even if you only got halfway 1 million instead of 2, would that not still change your life? The method need not be perfect to be transformational. So let us turn everything Mr. Lim did into a simple, practical playbook you could start this month. 6 steps. Each one boring. Each one powerful. None of them clever. Step 1. Automate everything. The single most powerful move in personal finance is to make saving and investing happen automatically, before you ever see the money. Set it up on payday and forget it exists. Pay yourself first. The oldest rule in the book. Most people pay everyone else first and try to save the scraps. There are never scraps. Flip the order, and you save before life can spend it. Why automation beats willpower is simple. Willpower runs out. Every month, something tempting competes for that money. Automation removes the choice and the temptation. A practical version. Pick a fixed amount you can sustain. Even 300 or 500 a month is a real start. Set it to invest automatically the day after payday. Then live on what is left. Step 2. Index. Do not gamble. Do not try to pick the winning stock or fund manager. Buy the whole market through a low-cost index fund, a Singapore STI ETF and a global ETF. And watch the fees, because fees are the silent thief. Favor funds charging a tiny fraction of a % a year. Be deeply suspicious of any product bundling investing with charges you do not understand. Step 3. Hold, no matter what. Once invested, your job is mostly to do nothing. Do not check the price daily, and do not sell when headlines are scary. The scary days are when your buying does its best work. Promise yourself this in advance, while you are calm. When the next crash comes, and it will, you will not sell, you will keep buying. Decide it now, so fear cannot decide it for you later. Step 4. Let CPF compound. Stop resenting that deduction and see it for what it is, a guaranteed, government-backed bond paying up to around 4%, risk-free. The rock-solid foundation of your plan. If you can afford to, strengthen that foundation, top up your CPF within the rules, or use the supplementary retirement scheme for tax relief. Boring, guaranteed, powerful. Step 5. Pay off your home. A paid-off roof is one of the great quiet wealth builders. It removes your biggest expense and frees that cash to invest for life. Resist over-upgrading for status. This does not mean never improving your home. It means choosing one you can afford, paying it down steadily, and being honest about whether the bigger place is for your life or for other people's eyes. A simple test for any home, car, or upgrade. Are you buying it for the life you live inside it, or for people who barely think about you? Mr. Lim only bought the first kind. Step 6. Ignore the noise. The financial news, the hot tips, the friend who tripled his money on a coin, the panic headlines. Almost all of it is designed to make you act. Your age is ignoring it. Practically, this means checking your portfolio rarely once a quarter, even once a year. The less often you look, the calmer you stay, and the less likely you are to do something foolish. Here is the whole 6-step playbook on one screen. Read it. Screenshot it. Stick it somewhere you will see it. There is genuinely nothing else hidden behind it. This is the entire method. Notice what is not on this list. No step that says be brilliant. No step that says get lucky. No secret. Every step is a choice about behavior, not a stroke of genius. And every one of these 6 steps can be started this month, by almost anyone with a steady income. You do not start with $2 million. You start with the first automatic 500. For some of you, the burning question is practical. Where do I actually click? Let me give the plain version of how a beginner in Singapore tends to start. Still education, not a recommendation of any product. First, the foundation before you invest a cent. Build a small emergency fund, a few months of expenses in cash. This is the cushion that lets you hold through a crash without being forced to sell. Then clear any high-interest debt, especially credit cards. No index fund reliably beats the 20% a card charges. Paying it off is a guaranteed return you cannot get anywhere else. Only then invest the surplus. In Singapore, the classic beginner route into the STI ETF is well trodden. A regular savings plan through a bank or broker can buy it automatically, every month, for a small fee. For the global slice, many use a low-cost brokerage to buy a world index ETF. The mechanics take an afternoon to learn once, then run for decades. Do your own homework on the specific product. Some prefer a low-cost robo-advisor to handle the whole thing. Pick the funds, automate the buying, reinvest the dividends. Perfectly in the spirit of this. The goal is automation and low fees. Whatever route you pick, the principle is identical to Mr. Lim's. Cheap, broad, automatic, and held. The platform is just plumbing. The behavior is what builds the wealth. And one gentle warning. You will be tempted, constantly, to make it more complicated. To add a clever fund, chase a hot theme, tinker. Resist. Complexity is usually just expensive excitement. We have met a man, opened up his 2 million, taken apart his 5-gear machine, and faced the caveats. So let me leave you with the one idea I most want you to carry. So let us go back, one last time, to that man at the kopitiam. Red pen. Cold copy. A stack of papers he is patiently working through, the same as he has for 30 years. He will finish his marking, climb into his 12-year-old car, and drive home to his paid-off flat. He will not feel rich, because he never lived like he was. And that was the secret. He let a small, boring machine run quietly behind an ordinary life. Full CPF. Automatic monthly investing. The whole market in 2 cheap funds. Held through every storm. On a home he owned. And across 30 patient years, that quiet machine turned an ordinary teacher's salary into an extraordinary, quiet $2 million. Not with cleverness. With consistency. And here is the most beautiful part. He did not spend 30 years stressed about money. While frantic people lost sleep over every wobble, Mr. Lim slept soundly. His plan never depended on him being right. Wealth was never the point in itself. It was a byproduct of a calm, well-ordered life. He was not chasing $2 million. He was just living sensibly, and it quietly happened to him. The deepest lesson of his life is this. You do not need to be the smartest person in the room to build real wealth in Singapore. You just need to be the most patient and consistent. And if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. You do not have to choose between living a full life and building real wealth. Mr. Lim did both. So the only real question this story leaves you with is simple. Will you build your own quiet machine, and let it run for the decades, while everyone around you is busy being clever and frantic? If this opened your eyes even a little, do the boring, consistent thing and subscribe, so the next quiet story finds you. And remember, this was education, not advice. Take care, and start small. Thanks for watching. If this made building wealth in Singapore a little clearer, give it a like and subscribe to Lukebook so you don't miss the next episode. See you in the next one.